What is up, guys? I'm John.
My name is Chris.
And we are the Heck, and today we're checking out freaking cut content from episode 6 of season 2 of Solo Leveling. And yeah, I'm freaking stoked about this. And this one was probably one of the greatest fight scenes in anime history, if I do say so myself. I remember watching this one and being like, in my opinion, like Demon Slayer has some of the greatest like fight animations just that I've seen in a long time. That and Jujutsu Kaisen has some crazy ones as well too. Yeah. But like this put it up there with both of those for me because like this whole episode was freaking nuts, and I'm really excited to see what all the cut content was.
Yeah, like
feel like we got a lot of like fighting for sure, but apparently there's a lot of other things that we missed. So I'm stoked to check that out. But if you guys are too, smash the freaking sub button if y'all are new to our channel. If you want to support our channel, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below. But for now, let's check this out. Freaking a boom, and then hitting that play button. A boom!
The secret that's sung in the novel is a lot more aggressive.
Ooh.
He takes things a bit more personally and really likes to flex when the opportunity comes up for him.
Hell yeah,
this
he does.
was no different during his fight with Tusk, and it creates for quite the entertaining bit of cut content. So, if you want to know the whole separate mission Sung was fighting for here, stick around as it's some of the most petty stuff we've seen from him yet.
Oh god,
There's
yes!
also plenty more to the fight surrounding it. Let's get started. Episode 18, Don't Look Down on My Guys, covering chapters 72 to 76 from the manhwa and chapters 89 to 92 from the web novel.
That's such a difference. I wonder why.
Will be getting her debut since that extra scene I mentioned could come out this episode didn't actually happen this episode.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the last one.
To quickly give you a rundown of what that was, it was essentially Jinho venting that he hadn't seen Sung in a week. Soo-yeon is the person Jinho is closest to, so it's not rare for him to have personal conversations with her like this. He was pretty much crying over the fact Sung had been ignoring him. Sung was just climbing the tower dungeon, but that wasn't news Jinho was aware of. Now, this scene wasn't just Jinho expressing his grievances, but was also a means to introduce him. The famous actor now turned hunter Lee Min-sung. He was getting lots of coverage for his upcoming evaluation. Soo-yeon, being a celebrity hunter herself, though, already knew this was nothing more than for show.
She's like,
As
whatever.
It turns out, Lee's evaluation was already completed. Why then the big press conference? Well, that's because that's who he was. He was a massive attention seeker who would do anything to put himself into the spotlight.
Makes sense.
A person whose ego Soo-yeon wasn't very fond of.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it for that. So to move on now to what we saw in the anime, let's start with when Cha arrives here.
Can I ask you a quick question? Anybody watching this, what is your favorite food anime? If you do watch one, please let us know in the comments. Because I want to watch another food anime. Drop it in the comments.
Yeah.
And where we can watch it at, too, if you do know that as well, too. But yeah, drop it in the comments.
There were a few more scenes of her acting all anxious while looking for Sung. At first, she didn't really want anyone knowing why she was here, so for a solid amount of time, she kind of just hung out around the back.
Where's the man who smells not bad?
Try to see if she could find Sung herself. It was when Sung didn't show up, though, that's when she decided she would wait for him. 1 minute would turn to 3, then 5 would turn to 15, eventually leading Cha to get dejected and leave. Such a feeling only lasted for a short couple of steps, though, since before she could even leave the site, Cha would quickly turn around and wait some more. It was only after all that waiting that Cha would finally
wait a
ask
whole little
about
bit
Sung.
longer.
This is where Cha would come to the conclusion Sung was far too suspicious, since even if she set aside the fact he magically found the boss room while getting lost, it's the fact he did get lost that doesn't make sense to her. I mean, Sung is a 4-year veteran after all. His actions here just didn't line up with someone who should have all the
so different looking.
Under his belt.
Which 100 push-ups a day will kind of do that to you if you do it for a while.
She needed to know what it was Sung wanted with the Hunters Guild. To go in without a weapon was unimaginable, though, and it was a lot more cute in the manhwa when Cha had to double back and take the pickaxe. This brings us now to inside the dungeon, where the full unrestrained aura of Tusk would be revealed to them.
Dude, he's so badass
the
in
manhwa
this
exhibits
episode.
this with panels of them dying, likely to highlight how easy it would be for Tusk to just kill them here. It still wasn't enough to break Ki-hoon's spirit, though, as the moment he saw Tusk distracted by Sung, that's when Ki-hoon would pounce, thinking it was a good opportunity to strike. For a second, he actually believed it worked too, since his first few steps were met by zero reaction whatsoever. Like, with none of Tusk's guards even making a move to intercept him, Ki-hoon truly felt like he lucked out here. In actuality,
my
Tusk
moment.
was simply accepting Ki-hoon as the first volunteer, leading to the beatdown we saw in the anime.
God.
The part of it we didn't see, though, was the resilience of Ki-hoon to keep fighting through all of it.
Really?
You see, even after getting tossed up and down 5 times over, Ki-hoon still hadn't let go of his sword yet.
Oh,
He
dang.
kept holding on because he refused to give up. Despite being up against such overwhelming power, Ki-hoon still wanted to fight anyway. So it was after getting tossed
God
times
dang!
after that's when Sung would step in to save him. He would then ask the question he'd been patiently waiting for, all while mimicking Tusk's attack on Tusk's own guard. The thing about Sung's attack, though, is that the way he did it was far more aggressive than the way Tusk did it.
Damn.
He would bounce the guard up and
It's
down
probably
like
really
he was a
fast.
basketball,
Yeah.
having him hit the floor and ceiling way harder and faster than how Ki-hoon got it.
Dang.
This made
Take that.
accepting
So,
Sung's
yeah,
request a
one-upped
whole
him.
lot easier because it was at this moment that Ki-hoon was angry. He was angry at himself for being toyed with and angry at the monsters for toying with him. So
Well, yeah.
it didn't matter who it was that was asking him. If they could put a stop to what him and his strike squad was going through, Ki-hoon was happy to accept help from anyone. It was the exact vulnerable mindset that Sung was waiting for. Now, I don't know if it was the way Tusk treated Ki-hoon or it was his comments calling Sung's abilities tricks, but the moment Sung got permission to attack, he became so much colder in his approach to everything.
Oh, dang.
Before, he never really cared about the monsters he killed, but this was the first time he wanted to slice one up badly. In fact, Sung was so enraged by what Tusk had done that he decided he was gonna save Tusk for last.
Hell
Since he
yeah.
was clearly capable of understanding
cool.
enjoyment, Sung wanted to see if he could make him feel fear as well. This was the new objective under which Sung was fighting for now.
Ah.
Before we get more into that though, Woo showing up here was out of direct orders from the chairman. Normally, he would have tried to investigate Sung discreetly, but an A rank trying to remain undiscovered against an S rank was straight up impossible. That being the case, Woo deemed it best to just show up in the open. He would try to justify it the same way Cha did and make it seem like it wasn't weird for him to be checking up on him. Naturally, he didn't want to come off as strange either, so a lot of mental gymnastics were done to make it seem like it wasn't. It's a funny series of excuses that share the same anxiety as Cha. They're both really trying their best not to creep Sung out. Of course, the
I don't
mere
want to freak him
presence
out,
of
but
the division was enough to make any hunter nervous,
looking
since
for him
if
really
they were
hard.
here, then that usually meant a hunter was in trouble. With their job being to arrest awakened that normal laws couldn't do anything about, the fact they were here now implied it could be to reform or eliminate someone. Such
That
was
makes
the
sense.
assumed work of the monitoring division. It was as soon as Woo got to the gate that he immediately knew the listed reading was wrong.
that
He
gate
could
looks
feel Tusk's
wild, dude.
unrestrained power even outside the gate. This wasn't enough to warrant very much concern though, since with 2 S ranks already on the inside, Woo figured they should have it handled. That was until he felt another aura. As soon as both him and his less mana-perceptive associates felt powers so indescribably raw, that's when they knew the hunters inside might be in trouble.
Was it Jinwoo?
So,
think
as
so.
hunters who were part of the monitoring division, it was now their job to go in and inform the current raid team exactly
Somebody
what they were
needs to
doing.
be fired, I think, for
Typically, they
like
did
raiding
only
all these
manage hunters and
gates,
watch them,
dude.
but
Oh
another
well,
part
it
of their
turns out it's red
responsibilities
gate.
was to
Like,
aid
how many
hunters in
times
their
did this
times of
happen to
need,
them?
too. The younger association
At this
hunters
point, they just
were
need scouts
certainly
to go in
scared
and
to
be
do
like,
so,
"Alright, yeah,
but
this is,
despite not
Yeah.
having to, they decided to follow Woo anyway. Now, for Cha, who was already quite deep in the dungeon herself, she was quite perceptive when it came to figuring out what had happened here. At first, she thought she simply underestimated her strike team, up until she noticed something odd.
Tiny little cuts.
Almost all the orcs were injured by short, sharp weapons. None were fatally injured by them, but they were hindered enough to limit their movements. They were clues that made it clear the strike team was celebrating victory over opponents someone else had prepped for them. She could also tell
Yeah.
they were taken care of all by one single hunter. Aside from the 2 in this instance here, Cha could easily tell one person drove every orc to the brink of death. How then was such a feat possible? Well, that was the part she couldn't figure out yet. You see, even with all her speed and power, Cha knew that even she would struggle to fight 20 high orcs solo. Combine this with the fact no one on Ki-hoon's team even used daggers, and that made the only reasonable explanation Sung. Though she couldn't be certain for sure, there were more than a couple clues indicating it probably was him. It was then that magic tremors could be sensed from deep inside the dungeon, exhibiting power unlike anything Cha had ever sensed before. If that was power that belonged to the boss, then Cha knew it was only a matter of time before Ki-hoon and his team were dead. The thing about these tremors, though, is that none of it was actually from Tusk. There was that one portion of aura when he took his mask off, but the energy Cha felt here and Woo felt here, all of it came from Sung. It was the moment he had unleashed his shadows.
Yeah.
Thus the reason it felt so incredibly different to them.
freaking aura.
The novel describes it as a wave of magic incomparably greater to that of Tusk's, so I believe that was the true
that's
terrifying
crazy,
power
dude.
Woo and Cha
Incomparably
felt earlier.
greater.
For the mages present who were right next to it, such power was one they couldn't even consider
Dude, their
to be
eyes
magic.
Just blast.
They
look
weren't even
wild.
sure that what they were feeling was magical energy anymore. All of it just felt so incredibly different to them.
I know, they
It
did
was as
so good
all
on the
that
manga.
magical energy filled the room that every hunter found it increasingly difficult to breathe.
Do you think
They
Eurus
could
is still
only
the
imagine
strongest
the
or
terror
no?
they would feel if they had to
Igris?
face such
Yeah.
an aura themselves.
I don't know.
Luckily,
It'd be
they
between him
didn't,
and
but
Tusk,
for the
probably.
high orc warriors who
Right.
did, these monsters known for their
Where's
bravery
Dragon
began
now?
to back up a bit. Though it was
Oh, yeah.
50 against 150, they were retreating from the dangerous pressure being emitted by Sung and his soldiers. Now, when it came to the massacre itself, if you're wondering what exactly about Sung reminded the others of Cha,
I love that
it
part.
was the way
Yeah.
she jumped into battle and swiftly cut down monsters like she was performing some high-tempo dance routine.
Mm-hmm.
This had earned her the nickname Dancer, and
Okay.
now
I
Sung was
about to
exhibiting
say, I
movements
feel like
that
they called her
exceeded
the
that.
dancer or
Mhm.
something.
So if Cha was a dancer, then Sung was a typhoon. He was the center
nice.
of a storm, obliterating absolutely everything in its
down.
path.
Good God.
Then, where Iron cut down orcs with pure destruction, Igris did so with the utmost elegance.
Mm-hmm.
They were
Nice.
still able to synergize well together, and there was even a scene where Tank and Iron would do a thumbs up to each other.
Oh, that's cool as shit.
That's
It was
awesome.
when Tusk would cast his hexes that's when he fully believed the fight was over. Reason being that hexes were fundamentally different from regular magic. They couldn't be evaded the same way a spell could. No, the moment they were cast, that was it. Normally one would require purification magic in order to dispel a hex, but what Sung had instead was power greater than the hex itself, the only other means of defending against it. That being the case, Tusk began to think there was another shaman
He's like,
greater
"Bro."
than him dispelling his magic. Not once did he think that it was actually just Sung's natural immunity.
That's so
It was a
wild that it
moment
was
later
Yeah.
that
just a
Sung would
passive
finally
skill.
engage Tusk himself, but not enough to fully kill him yet. He actually could have killed Tusk the instant the fight began, but because he wanted to instill fear into his heart before that, Sung
Yeah.
decided he would simply play with him.
Do
He
whatever he
wanted to make
resurrected all of
Tusk
his
feel
people
what
against
Ki-hoon
him.
and the others felt first.
Yeah, like
This
his own
was a bit
bodyguards
harder
and
than
stuff.
Sung initially thought, though, because even after killing his orcs and dispelling
Damn, he
his
just
hexes,
crushed them all.
Tusk's eyes still looked alive. It was clear Sung needed to step things up a bit. So, that's when he would extract the shadows of the High Orcs, revealing a fate far worse
I wonder
than
if
death
that
for
helps
them.
him extract
Where normally these High
higher
Orc
level
warriors
creatures
would
if
have
he
no
makes them feel
problem
fear
jumping
before
in
he
against
kills
an
them.
Maybe.
opponent who was
or like
stronger
kind of
than
like
them.
makes them
Now they were
submissive
openly
before they
retreating. To see their dead
That's a solid
comrades turned
question.
against them was far too much. It wasn't because the battle was 100 versus 100 now though, but rather the fact something precious was being denied from them.
Yeah.
You see, to know that if they died they wouldn't ascend to warrior heaven, well, that was their worst
no
possible
Valhalla
nightmare.
for you.
Mm-hmm.
They were truly afraid of becoming someone else's puppets.
You're gonna be summoned,
This
buddy.
was true for every High Orc present,
Kinda
and
makes
it
sense, though,
remained
if you think
true for
about it.
their leader as well.
Arise!
Where only moments ago he still had fight in his eyes, now there were clear signs of fear. It just
Yes.
wasn't for the same reason as everyone else. What I mean is that something about Sung made Tusk recall an existence that could revive the dead into shadows. It was an existence of which there should only be one of, not two. That being the case,
What?
Tusk knew this human had to be him.
Him?
Who is him? Well, that's a question I can only assume relates to this scene in the anime. For Tusk, it was a revelation leading to thoughts far more existential. Like, if Sung truly was the
happening right
person he
there?
thought he was, then why was it that him and the other orcs were
That
here in
little
this dungeon?
glitching right there
Nothing
really
made
messed with
sense
me
when it
too.
came to the concepts surrounding their existence. No, instead any thoughts of the subject were left completely empty. It was as if his brain had been wiped of all of it. This left only the emotion of fear, which was exactly what Sung had wanted. His
Yeah.
plan turned out to be a complete success. It's before the fight would come to an end, though, that an interesting interaction would occur between Sung and Cha first, where in the anime Sung doesn't notice Cha until after everything. The two would actually make eye contact right as she entered.
Oh,
At
damn.
first, she was thrown aback by the incredible scene in front of her, but that came secondary to helping her strike team. As curious as she was to find out more about Sung Jinwoo, the safety of her comrades came first. It was a priority that involved jumping into the fight and killing orcs herself. It was right as she was about to do so, though, that's when she would make eye contact with Sung. A momentary
Damn.
exchange which would lead her to the realization interference wasn't necessary.
He's got
In
it.
fact,
Yeah.
Sung's gaze made it clear it was something she shouldn't do at all.
Dude, he looks
She
totally
couldn't
different there.
understand why that was, but something about his expression made it clear he was in complete and utter control. Sure, his
Damn.
summons probably had him low on mana, and sure 100 high orcs and a boss were still left to be taken care of, but still Cha knew she needed to stick to the sidelines.
dog.
Instead, the only thing she could wonder was how it was Sung was going to finish this. So, when Cha lowered her stance and resigned herself to the sidelines, that's when Sung could relax knowing things would continue the way he wanted.
Yeah, he
With
didn't have to
all
worry
the work
about.
he had put in to get to this
Are they
point,
in trouble?
it
Or
would have been
Yeah,
a real
yeah.
shame for Cha to step in and ruin all that. Like, the man had even waited for Ki-hoon to drop his sword here, also he could be absolutely certain Ki-hoon would answer the question the way he wanted
Oh,
him to.
damn.
He had
Okay.
suppressed his urge to kill the shaman from the very beginning because the most important thing was getting permission.
That's really
Sung
wild.
wanted
Yeah.
everything and he went to great lengths to secure it. So, to know Cha would let him continue with what he worked so hard to earn, well, that was incredibly relieving. He could focus solely on the
That is
fight
awesome.
knowing no one was going to interrupt him. It's a pretty big difference from how it goes down in the
Gosh.
anime, since despite Sung knowing an S rank is watching him, he still proceeds to fight with his entire army anyway. He even makes a conscious effort to make a show out of it.
Yeah.
This, I think, highlights best the core difference between the Sungs of each medium because you can see exactly where their mindsets are at. One's completely focused on business, while the other has room to flex and even play around a bit. Now,
Yeah.
though in the anime it was the generals which finished the fight for him, in the novel all it took was a single punch. Tusk
Damn.
would ask if Sung still found things amusing, to which Sung would simply reply yes. It was a cold one-liner which showed Sung never took the fight seriously to begin with. In
Here
the
we
end,
were
Sung
thinking that
would
this
gain
guy
2
was
more
like
levels,
gonna be kind of like
acquire a
difficult to him a
shadow
little
Yeah,
bit.
above Igris and Iron at the Elite Knight level, then
Okay,
also
I've been
be able
wondering
to
this.
store up to 127 shadows now.
Good God.
If you're wondering why Tusk was easier to acquire than Baraka, well, it's implied the success rate of extraction was dependent on the target's strength compared to Sung. So, since Baraka was a 3v1 Sung barely won, it makes sense then that his shadow would be harder to extract.
Makes
Now,
sense.
it was while Sung was being escorted back that he would actually ask why Wu was doing this. Wu would respond by asking if he was planning to join the Hunters Guild, a question to which he already knew the answer to, but needed to
He's like,
ask
"Nah."
anyway since it was the best way to identify the mistake Sung just made. What I mean is that by exhibiting above S-rank powers in front of employees of the largest and wealthiest guild in the entire country,
That was so
Sung had
badass.
just opened himself up to more of the annoyances he hated. His actions
People
contradicted
trying
what he
to
said
poach
he
him.
wanted earlier. This was a point Sung unfortunately couldn't help but agree with, since there was no telling what length the Hunters Guild would go to secure another S-rank hunter. Luckily, the association's interests lined up with Sung, so at the very least, the two could work together to avoid situations like this. It was before leaving that Ki-hoon would run up to thank Sung personally, because from his perspective, he had essentially saved them for nothing. Not only did he request zero compensation for his heroic
I was like, for
efforts,
nothing?
but
What do you
he
mean?
also risked revealing his identity,
Yeah.
which the association clearly wanted to keep hidden. That being the case, it would have been wrong for Ki-hoon not to thank Sung properly. He also felt personally grateful after Sung had killed that one general using the same method he was
That was
tortured
pretty
with.
badass.
Sung would then get one last dig on the healer girl before leaving, confirming my assumption that he really just doesn't like her for some reason. Cha would be the only one not getting to say what she wanted, since where she just wanted to ask to talk later, she wasn't even able to get his number. She
Dang.
felt
That's
if she
wild.
asked, then
Rejected.
her intentions might be misunderstood a bit. So instead, she decided to say nothing. Sung's conversation with Jinwoo is something they'll show more of next episode, so that leaves us with this last
sure
scene with
about
Joy.
that?
His face was certainly something when he found out Sung was acting as their porter, then more was said about how Sung is a stronger hunter than him. The way Ki-hoon goes about contextualizing it is by explaining how in raids, roles were divided into attack, defense, and support. It's without all three working together that a team would usually find themselves in danger. It's for that reason that raid teams are usually built the way they are. The weakness of one teammate gets made up for by the strength of another.
Yeah.
What then happens when all three roles can be covered by a hunter solo? Well, therein lies the fundamental difference between Sung and Choi. It didn't matter how powerful Choi's magic was, because when a horde of monsters attack him all at once, there would be nothing he could do to defend himself. Such was a scenario Sung could easily take care of, so that's the reason he can be considered stronger than Choi. But yeah, that's pretty much it for
He's
this
a
episode.
solo raid team.
Yeah,
If you like
pretty
what you
much,
saw,
dude.
Leave a like, and if you want to see more, then consider subscribing.
It's just awesome to
I'll
know
also
that.
be talking about next episode's cut content early on stream on Sunday, so feel free to follow
Oh,
me there
he
for more
streams on
content.
Twitch. I'm gonna have to check him
That's
out over
pretty
there.
wild. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to hop on his stream one day and just be like, "What up,
Yeah,
players, man?
yeah.
Watch stuff." Dude, but it is really cool to think about, because like we've had this question pretty much since the start, like how strong is he? How strong is he? And we know
Yeah.
that he keeps just progressively getting stronger, but like now knowing that he's at least S rank and probably the strongest of the S ranks, it's really cool to know
The
that
ones
now.
that we know of so far, he is, I would say.
Yeah, I think so.
That we
So,
know their abilities
yeah.
and stuff.
His dad obviously is an S rank, but they need to have another tier though. You know what I mean? Like S rank
God
just
tier.
doesn't seem like, yeah, it feels like they're way outclassing the S ranks that are already there. So it's like, what do you even call them after that? But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think S rank was made to be that thing for them anyways. You know what I mean? They were like just destroying everybody in the A ranks, you know?
Yeah.
Like they were you couldn't even compare them towards one another. Like A and S, the gap was like so drastic that there's not really any reason to even have them in the same thing. So it's like, I feel like that's definitely
Basically,
happening
Sung just needs his own category
here.
at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's really cool to know that he can pretty much like solo level like an A rank dungeon for sure, no problem. And then
Yeah,
more
that is
than
pretty
that,
wild.
probably.
Maybe he should just start his own guild and just start soloing everything.
Right?
Like,
Right?
If he's so afraid of it. or
Yeah.
the politics behind it.
But I'm really curious to see what ends up happening with him. That the dancer, freaking S rank lady. I don't know, but it would be cool if they actually have something going on there too. And like especially with the last episode that we saw, like a little bit more of his human side with dealing with things with his mom and his sister and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Being able to see that side of them, I do wonder if they're gonna like kind of dive into that at all and like explore like possibly him having a relationship. Because I'm betting you anything, as an E rank hunter, he probably had no prospects. You know?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely
his
not.
friend that was the healer kind of was more like a sympathy type thing, you know? And like
I don't know,
now,
maybe she might have been there.
Yeah,
she might have been
yeah.
like the one back then, but like,
yeah.
at this point, you know.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know, man. Very curious though. Very curious to see how they play that. But either way, I hope you guys are having a blessed one. If you need anything at all, message us. We will catch you later, freaking doodles.
Later.
Bye.